Welcome, my name is Helena and I'm the creator behind Fabel Knitwear. Thank you so much for joining me today because I have something so exciting to share. The first pattern of my Heirloom collection is being released. It's finally ready. It was meant to be published late April, early May, but because of the pandemic and it was meant to be a physical launch and all that stuff, we just put it off, and then everyone, both me and Pickle, were waiting for yarn and it just took a lot longer, although the pattern has been ready for a while and finally it's here. It's the first of 5 patterns that will be published throughout 2020, and at the end we're going to do a roundup celebratory window display with all these garments, with one of them being published for that event. That's the plan, at least, unless something else changes. But the first pattern is ready. It's the Antiquity Blouse. I'm wearing the Antiquity Blouse. Is the first of these 5 patterns. The collection itself is inspired by years or decades in the 20th century, so from the 1900s and up. I have delved into historic fashion. I have a degree in costume design and I have a passion for it, to say the least. I've always loved historical clothing. There's just something about the craft, the skill, and they were just made a different way than clothes are today. Nothing was mass produced, everything was made with care and to last and to look beautiful. Today clothing is made so that it breaks in 2 months and you have to buy a new thing. And I really admire that aspect of clothing in the past. Also, clothing has never been as cheap as it is now. So yes, clothing it was expensive back then, and not everyone dressed this way. People who had the resources to did, but as a whole, clothing were made to last, and there was just a different mentality around it because it wasn't mass produced, and I really admire that about fashions of the past. Pretty much the only thing to want to go back to, because the past is not something to romanticize, but visually it's very pleasing and I really enjoy it. I'm a massive history geek, I love it, and so historical fashion has for me always just been an escape. I love it. And so for this collection too, I've always been inspired by silhouettes and cuts of different decades in all my designs, but this time I really delved into it and looked at fashion plates and original magazines and antique vintage pieces for inspiration, and it's just been such fun. This is the Antiquity Blouse. The Antiquity Blouse was inspired by popular fashion in blouses from during the First World War. So roughly this was a popular style from like roughly 1916 to 1918, give or take. That's when you find most of this cut in fashion plates and fashion magazines and illustrations of that time. My love of Edwardian fashion was my first love of fashion when I watched Titanic as a child. I fell head over heels in love. I absolutely love that era. And Titanic made me start, and I use the word research lightly because I'm not a scientist, I don't do research in that sense, but for want of a better word, I delved into historical fashion as a result of the aesthetic in Titanic. I was obsessed, and I researched shoes and dresses and undergarments, and I loved it. That's what I wanted to dress like, which was not going to happen in 2000. But as I grew older and figured out how to get hold of stuff that maybe looked a bit like it and wearing it with more modern things, and so not dressing in costume, it's always been, Edwardian fashion has just always been my love. It's always been my favourite, and this was just such a pleasure to do. In 2017 maybe, I did a degree in costume design. I also sew, and I worked in film for many years, although that's neither here nor there. I made a armistice blouse from folklore because it's just the perfect blouse. I fell in love with this cut when I watched Downton Abbey, and Lady Mary wears the blouse that I was just obsessed with. I wanted that blouse and I couldn't find it for less than, I was a student at that time, not in 2017, but when I watched Downton Abbey, and I just didn't have the budget to buy a decent condition Edwardian blouse as a student, and they're quite rare in decent condition, and so I just never find one. I have several now in my collection and I cherish them beyond belief, but I finally found a pattern that I could make my own, and I made an armistice blouse in some cotton and thin, another thin cotton that I had lying around, and this is it. It went okay. I would have loved to do it in creams and lace. I don't know why I didn't. I think I was just using scrap fabrics because I wanted to try. The pattern itself isn't really all that well written in my opinion, so you might need to be able to tell, at least know the basics of how to read and do a pattern. I remember mostly just figuring it out myself after having cut out the pieces, though others might disagree with me. But that was my first foray into making something Edwardian. That was the armistice blouse from Folkwear. And so when I started doing this collection, the first thing I knew that I wanted to do was I wanted to do a World War I era armistice style type knitwear blouse, because, and I've raved about this so many times on many occasions, square necklines, so pretty on everyone, and I wanted more square necklined things. And so the first thing I said and thought and planned to do was, I'm going to make an late Edwardian blouse that I've always dreamed of, the one that I fell in love with, that Lady Mary wore. And this is it. This is the armistice blouse. I'm going to show you some of my sketches. This was the first sketch that I did before I started anything. It gets the basic gist. I wanted to do a collar, I wanted to do a panel of lace, and I wanted the sleeves to be sheer and billowy. And then as I started, I had to go more in depth and figure out which versions I was doing of what. Was I doing a panel halfway down, all the way down? What about the collar? All that stuff. So this, and here is just my, this is what it would look like flat, because it has this tie. So these are some of the sketch versions that I did. Sketching is so helpful to me. It really helps me clear my mind, and I get a better visual idea of what I'm doing, because I'm most of the time able to translate what's on paper, figure out how to do it, and then do it. Whereas if I go in blind, I can get overwhelmed. So this really, really helps me just put everything straight. The things that I knew I wanted, as I said, I wanted a sheer collar, I wanted a lace panel, I wanted a tie at the waist, and I wanted these fake buttons knit as bobbles. In Norwegian we call them knitbringer. And those were the things I knew I really wanted. And then it came down to figuring out, what fabric am I gonna make? What yarn do I have to use? The original blouses were usually made in cotton, really thin, gorgeous cotton. Sometimes a chest dotted fabric cotton, and sometimes striped, but usually just very pretty and plain and muted colours. So I went for these lovely muted shades. This is Pickle's Pure Wool, and this is their silk mohair. I toyed with the idea of doing it all in mohair, but just with the lace panel it would drown a bit in it because it would be held single, because I wanted it to be really sheer and drapey. And so I opted on pardon, a solid body, because that way you're not going to have your underwear showing and all that stuff as well. And then sheer sleeves with the solid again at the cuff. So that's what I went for. The armistice blouse is knit bottom up, start and it's knit in the round all the way up, and then you cast off for the sleeves, and then you knit the front and the back separately, and you join it at the shoulders, and then once that's done, you pick up for the sleeves in the mohair, and then you knit down for decreasing and doing the cuff in a twisted rib with these fake buttons that I showed you that I'm in love with. They are placed on the outside of the wrist on each sleeve, and they're just the perfect little detail to make this a complete Edwardian ensemble, because there are so many details that you don't have in modern clothing, and just being able to add as many of them as possible without it being too busy and still like being an elegant blouse, because knitwear is more bulky than a light cotton or a silk. So I'm really pleased with this. The lace panel, let me stand up so you can see. So it's knit bottom up in the round. At the beginning you have this lovely little bobbled and yarn over pattern that runs all the way around the hem of the blouse, and then after that the front panel of lacing is knit all the way up. Most Edwardian blouses of that time have this tie at the waist, so I really wanted to add that. This is not a permanent feature, it's just a braided strand of yarn that you can take on and off and wear as you please. Once you reach this point, there's a Picot Hem, and the lace panel consists of this yarn over pattern, as well as these bobbled, kind of florally pattern. The sleeves have very, very slight blooming. I wouldn't go as far as to call them puff shoulders, but it has a blooming of more stitches at the top of the shoulder to create more volume in the sleeves. The collar is picked up at the very end and knit out until you cast off using picot again, same as here. So you get this picot edge that runs all the way around the neckline. Let me show you the back of the collar. That is the Antiquity blouse. I had such fun making this and such fun designing it and knitting it, and then I'm so pleased with how it turned out. I had some wonderful test knitters for this, and I got a few of their pictures here. The waist tie is just braided using 2 strands of the solid and 1 strand of the mohair. You could use literally anything. You can't really tell there's any mohair in there. at all. I just did it to try. And then just tie. I haven't sewn it in the back or anything. That's completely optional. The original blouses of the day have their waist ties sewn at the back of the neck, at the small of the back, and then you just tie them. Obviously, completely optional whether you like to have things tied or to wear it a bit looser. This is a cropped pattern. There are instructions in the pattern for how long you want it, and also instructions for how low you want your neckline. I've knit the lowest version because my bust is very small, but there are 3 neckline options in the pattern: low, mid and higher. Just all depends on your preference and how comfortable you feel showing your chest, really. I think this is a very flattering cut on everyone. Other people might not be as comfortable showing this low, and so this would also be a beautiful flat, a really nice square neckline to wear. You don't have to make it this low. Those options are all included in the pattern, and it also says how, if you want it longer, you can make those adjustments. Just bear in mind you might need more yarn. I am so happy with this. I can't say it enough. I also knit one in my hand-dyed yarn, which is Usk and mohair silk. You could use both Usk and Athena for this. Usk is more of a light sport weight, so I get a thicker gauge on it, so I always have to go down a needle size. If not, the garment's going to be too big. But I just wanted to try it because I really wanted to see how the rustic, non-superwash, more to the wool would look with the mohair, because this isn't all that contrasting. I just really wanted to see what it would look like. So this is it. I knit this in the colourway Fay, which is this beautiful sort of fields of barley, oats colour. And in Usk, this pattern is so pretty. It really pops. And it's showed beautifully. I've used the same shade in my mohair silk. And here is the cuff. I am very pleased with this as well. I love it. You could also use Athena. Athena is my fingering weight gold stellina merino nylon base. It's gonna produce a sleeker look, and again, mind your gauge for that. My gauge is tighter on it, so I might have to go up half a needle size. I'm gonna knit one in Athena as soon as I can, and I can't decide on the colour. I wanted to show you some colours that I really think this would be gorgeous in. And I cannot stress enough, knit this in any brand of yarn that you want, any silk mohair or any fingering weight yarn that you fancy. It does not have to be Pickles or mine. Let's start with some colours. I'm going to show you first up the one I'm seriously contemplating knitting it in, which is Pearly Grey Ghost. I am obsessed with this grey. This is my hand-dyed yarn, this is Athena, and this is mohair silk. And it's just this icy, silvery grey. And as I said in a previous episode, it reminds me of Galadriel. Even though she never wears grey, it just has that ethereal feel. And I think this would be such a beautiful Antiquity Blouse. This is so high on my list of colours. Another colour option that would be good, I'm just going to pick at random from here on out, is Erebor. Erebor is this slate grey with speckles of gold, brown and copper. This would be really gorgeous for autumn. Of course there is Fay, which is what I knit it in. so pleased with this. This is Usk, and as you can see, it's a lot tubier. If I show it to you next to a skein of Athena, you might be able to see. Just depends how you like your finished result. I'm gonna knit one in Athena as well, and I really like the Usk version if you want it a bit more rustic, whereas Athena would be a lot more elegant. So this is Faye. Then we have Fleur, which is my beautiful pinkish cafe latte style shaded crepe. This is Usk, this is Athena, and here we have Mohair. This would just be a classic staple piece, very similar to the original shades that they were sewn in. Gold Thorn. Someone needs to make this in Gold Thorn ASAP, or I'm gonna lose it. This is another strong contender for me. This would just be amazing, and really, while not the traditional colour that they would have used, it would really just lend it this air of opulence that I love, just elegance. This would be amazing. Another good summery option would be Butterbeer. Butterbeer is this molten golden yellow, and this is just sunshine in yarn. It would be really beautiful in this, and I think the yellow would be really beautiful with the lace panel because it's not too neat bright. It's not going to overpower it. Another stunning option that I seriously contemplated, but I don't suit the colour so well, but I'm so jealous of the people that do, is Kingsfoil. This is just perfect. Again, this is just a colour that reminds me of the elves in the Lord of the Rings. It's so ethereal. It would be timeless and stunning. Another colour I think is so pretty, but one that doesn't suit me unfortunately, is Maiden. This with just blue jeans or shorts in summer would be amazing. I'm showing you both Usk and Athena. For all my witches and wizards out there, Elixir. This shows up a lot bluer than it is. This is a really rich Venetian sort of wizarding purple. In Norway we would call this Advents Lilla. It's a deep, deep purple that is not blue camera, shame on you. This would be amazing. Someone knit this for Christmas, please. Another option is Dragon Scale and Vasilisa. Vasilisa is slightly lighter than Dragon Scale, but still works beautifully with the mohair. And here we have Dragon Scale on Athena. You could do, and I had to talk myself out of this because I always want to knit in this colour, but I need to branch out a little bit. And it is of course Wizard's Robes, which I have an Heirloom Blouse in and a Minerva cardigan in. I mean, how can you not want to knit this? And in this as well. This would be so elegant. My newest colour is Nox, which is a deep, deep, deep charcoal. So grey, it's black. And the gold stellina shows through so beautifully on the black. You can't really see it on the camera. You think, oh, a little bit, yeah. This, again, so elegant. I need this, and I've said so many times, or thought for many years I need to knit something in black, but it's never really been that tempting to knit with, even though I would wear it. But with gold, yeah. We have New Spring, which is a eucalyptus aloe vera colourway speckles of deeper green and grey. This would be very beautiful for summer. And the speckles are very subtle, so it's not going to be too busy. Another green is Moonglade, and this is another serious contender for me. It's this gorgeous teal green, and I think just with the lace pattern and the cut and everything, this would be so elegant. So this is, yeah, one of my contenders, definitely. We have Astronomy Tower, which is this deep midnight royal blue. Again, this would be such a classic garment and look good with anything really. We have Mage Bloom, which is one of my favourite speckled colourway. It's cream speckled with sage, gold and brown. And the speckling is subtle enough that it wouldn't overpower the lace pattern. I think this would be really beautiful. We have Moulin Rouge, which is a deep clear blood wine red. Seriously. The reds, they get me every time. And we have Petal. I just knit something in Petal and I'm obsessed with this. It's so pretty. It's a bit pinker on the mohair, but it's the same colourway. You could also use Petal mohair with Capulet. I think this would be really pretty. Capulet is a dusty pink moss green colourway. Some mauve in there, and I think these sleeves and collar and this body would be very, very pretty. But my main contenders are Moonglade, Goldthorn and Paddy Grey Ghost. I have no idea which one to choose. Seriously, what do you think? Please tell me what you think if you have any preferences. And tell me what you would knit them in. These are some of the colours that I think this would be gorgeous in, but absolutely not limited to these. Also a nice rich brown would be beautiful. I had such a wonderful time designing this, from start of the concept to it being tested and finished and everything. I love it. So this is the first pattern in my Heirloom collection. There are 4 more patterns to go. And stay posted on Instagram for more information and hints and teasers. The next pattern will be the folklore blouse, which I've posted 1 picture of thus far on Instagram. And I'm so excited to share them all. I get really impatient, I want to share them. And I also want to build the anticipation and release them at the right time and not release them too quickly after each other, because then you don't really have, they can just drown out each other. If there's too much happening, one might get lost, like in the excitement of a new pattern. So that's how I like to do it. I hope you like them. I am so pleased. It's probably, oh, it might be my favourite collection. Dangerous thing to say, maybe. With the magical places as a tie. I love them all, don't get me wrong. But even just the design process and just the whole concept creating of this, it feels very cohesive to me, which is important. And it feels like a united aesthetic. Obviously you don't know any of this yet because you've only seen one of them, but I just really enjoyed making this, and it's made me feel very inspired. Designing this process has opened up like a new floodgate of inspiration and ideas. I have so many things I want to design and so little time and only 2 hands. I'm so pleased that you knit my patterns and that you enjoy them and post pictures of them, which is my favourite thing ever, is seeing what you make. So as always, remember to use the hashtags when you post pictures of what you're knitting and what yarn you're using and all that good stuff, so that I can stalk you and see what you're making and how you're making it, because it gives me just so much joy. Please do that. I hope you like this pattern. I am thrilled with it and really felt that it came together the way I wanted it to. Thank you so much for joining me today. I had a wonderful time telling you about the first pattern, the Antiquity Blouse, from my upcoming and ongoing, as of the release, Heirloom Collection. Thank you again. If you thought this was interesting and enjoyed yourself, remember to subscribe below, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye.